Here in France, the Prime Minister Francois Bayrou looks set to survive a no-confidence vote in Parliament today. That's after he used special constitutional powers to push through, without a vote, a much-needed budget for 2025. Now, that same move brought down the last government late last year, and we're going to talk all about this now with French politics expert Paul Smith, who joins me. Paul, welcome. It's always great to have you on the show.
Very pleased to be here.
So Francois Bayrou used this infamous French tool called the 49-3 or the 49-3 to push through the budget, just like his predecessor late last year. And yet, while the last government was brought down in the no-confidence vote, Bayrou, at the moment, looks set to survive. What changed between now and then?
Well, in some ways, it was the fall of Barnier helped the situation. That might sound paradoxical, but of course, the response amongst the French public, particularly certain sections of the French public, was quite a forthright response. And it's very difficult for a country, even though France has laws in place to have a temporary budget, you still need a permanent budget. So that's the first thing. And it kind of woke people up a bit, particularly the political parties. So Bayrou, who's not the same kind of politician as Barnier, much more of a centrist, was able to make overtures to the left, not to bring them into government. That didn't work, although there are some former socialist ministers in his government, but at least to open up negotiations with the Parti Socialiste, the social democratic wing of the left, if you like, and to talk to them about concessions in the budget, to take the Barnier budget and make some changes and say, what do you think of that? Not necessarily as voting for the budget, but at least not voting against it through a motion of no confidence. And that's where we are now. We know we've got the budget through using 49-3. There's going to be a no confidence vote or a couple of motions this afternoon, but the socialists have said they're not going to support those.
Indeed. Well, let's talk a bit more about what's exactly in this budget. I mean, Bayrou's agreed to provide certain things, for example, more public money for hospitals, committing to not cut some 4,000 jobs in education. And perhaps the key thing here is he said that he was open to renegotiating that contested plan to raise the retirement age in France from 62 to 64. I mean, can you seriously see that happening?
Well, he seems to be serious about it, and at least he's getting the social partners around the table to talk about it. But that will still be a hurdle to overcome further down the line. There are a whole series of important pieces of legislation, important debates where another motion of no confidence could still be an obstacle. It could still happen, and there are lots of players in the game, not just the left, but also the far right. So his government, Bayrou's government, is essentially an issue by issue, week by week basis. I was reading a commentary this morning that's kind of, we're taking each fortnight as it comes, and that's very much how it's going to be between now and 2027 if this government gets that far.
Let's talk a bit more about the far right, which, as you mentioned, said it will not support this no confidence motion either, so effectively backing Francois Bayrou. I mean, long term or even in the short term, is this far right support a good thing for Emmanuel Macron's centrist government?
Well, it's not really support so much as not voting against the government. It's really, the motion of no confidence is kind of a domestic affair insofar as it's up to each party to decide what it wants to do. And in fact, the national rally has been very divided about this, although Le Pen and the party president, Jordan Bardella, have talked about not voting. I know that some people, particularly one of the vice presidents, Sébastien Chenu, who's kind of seen as being one of the tacticians of the party, has said that perhaps we should vote for it. Should we, and even if we don't vote with La France Insoumise this afternoon, there's another censorship motion coming up next week tabled by the socialists, and there's no guarantee that the national rally wouldn't vote that. But they've also got to bear in mind that they have been unpopular as a consequence of voting down Barnier with certain sections of the electorate. So they need to be careful as well, but they're also looking at their own agenda. What with the judgment of Le Pen coming up at the end of March in the illegal financing of the party trial that she had to face.
For many critics, one of the difficult things with Francois Bayrou and the Macron government in general is what they perceive it as a veering toward the right, more and more toward the right. There was a very concrete example just last week when the Prime Minister used a word, submergé, talking about immigration, that translates to submerge, saying France is submerged in migrants. Now, that's language that usually is only used by the far right here in France. I mean, how big a risk is that for Bayrou to be seemingly aligned like that with the far right?
Yeah, that was ill-judged. I don't know if he thought about it or if he deliberately said it, and that, of course, is that's the reason the socialists are going to table a motion of no confidence next week. The motion of no confidence isn't just linked to 49.3. Any group can, so long as they've got enough signatures, put down a motion of no confidence. So they're going to table this alternative motion next week, and that's still risky because if the National Rally, for example, decided to support that. Unlikely because, as you say, it's the language of the National Rally, but they could still cause a great deal of trouble. So it is very much this taking each issue as it comes. That is the language of the far right, and it was a bit of a surprise when it came out. When he came out with that expression, and he needs to be very careful about managing a lot of very sensitive groups in Parliament. So it certainly sounds rhetorically like a veering to the right, and there is timetabled a debate about immigration in France coming up. So it could really get very feisty, a very truculent debate indeed. So that's a high risk strategy as well.
All right, Paul, thank you so much for that. In the meantime, that budget did get pushed through, and we'll see if Bayrou does survive that no confidence vote, as it's assumed will happen a little bit later today. Paul Smith, thank you so much.